Hi everyone, my name is Tamimi and I'm a developer advocate at Solace. Today I'll be talking about Postman in an event-driven playground, and I'll be presenting this at the AsyncAPI Conference. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I'd like to cover a use case that I'll be referring to throughout the talk. And in this use case, I'll be talking about a company that's called Acme Retail Store, and they're a mega retail store that has a sophisticated underlying technology infrastructure. For the components of this retail store, there is a mobile application, which is an innovative mobile application that lets customers purchase any order and any products in the store online. And this application is a real-time, gives customers like real-time updates on their orders. There is a daily summary sales microservice that is involved with receiving all orders for the stores and produce a summarized graphs. And this is for executive consumption. We have a customer sentiment application, which is a real-time application that reflects how customers are feeling in the store. There's a point of sale system that receives product events from supply chain management domains and allow for price updates and restrictions on purchases. This point of sale system as well emits retail orders that allow for analytics in the overall supply chain system. We have an in-store fulfillment microservice, and this is a mobile application that is used by personnel in the store for fulfillment of orders and for restocking the shelves. And then lastly, we have a smart shelving system. And basically, what the system does is it continuously updates information on what are the products that are being removed from the shelves in real time. And this is in an effort to analyze customer trends as well as forecast fraud. So now you can see that there are different components for the underlying Acme retail store. And let's say that you are an architect and you've been hired by Acme Retail Stores and you've been tasked with building an event-driven architecture to connect all the different components together and including legacy systems, adding new microservices, and let's say that you want to leverage cloud services like AWS sentiment analysis. There's also IoT devices in the smart shelving and the in-store fulfillment, and you want to connect all these together. You can also say that you could be a developer who's hired by Acme Retail Stores who wants to start modeling the underlying system and the interaction between the different microservices. You want to collaborate with different team members, and you want to deploy your applications and test them and mock them in different environments. So the first thing that comes up to your mind is, where should I start? There's so many different moving parts, and it is so important to take a step back and see where we want to start before we start tackling a solution for our problem that we have here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a step back, explain some basic fundamental concepts about event-driven architecture in general, and then delve more into the use case, and we'll see where Postman fits in all of this as well. And by the way, this slide is dedicated to Franz Cat. So Franz Cat, if you can hear me, this one's for you. All right, so if we think of event-driven architecture as a bowl of salad, and in this bowl of salads, there are different components that are needed to build an event-driven architecture. Think of these components as ingredients and the bowl as the underlying messaging technology. So when you tackle an event-driven architecture, there's components or there's things like designing your event-driven architecture. There's documentation and specification. You want to govern your EDA, collaborate between different team members. You want to mock and test your different applications and events. So this is kind of the design time aspect of an event-driven architecture. There's also the runtime aspect of implementing and deploying an event-driven architecture, and this is where event brokers come into the mix. Post-deployment, you want to deliver your applications, You want to share the different event APIs and the asynchronous APIs that are involved in your underlying systems. You want to expose them as event API products. There's version control, there's lifecycle management, and there's environments. So I really like this slide in particular to kind of give an overall view on the different pieces that are involved in event-driven architecture. And it's so important to know that you cannot serve the salad with just an empty bowl. So event-driven architecture, the solution towards event-driven architecture is not just approached by the runtime aspect, which is an event broker. There are so many different pieces and moving parts around approaching and tackling an event-driven architecture. Whether you're starting to build an event-driven architecture from scratch, or you're going through a digital transformation journey and you want to slowly start migrating to an event-driven architecture approach. For today's talk, I'm only going to be covering some pieces about in this mix, which is the design aspect. We've got the specifications, mocking and testing, and the underlying event broker for the runtime aspect of things. So let's go ahead and start with the design component of event-driven architecture. And this is where we will be meeting Solace PubSub Event Portal. So for the first component, from the design component, what is Solace PubSub Event Broker? So the event portal is broken down into different components, but the main kind of features that are provided by event portal, you can use it to define and model your event-driven systems. You can visualize the existing relationships between the different moving parts, the different microservices within one application domain, or if you have multiple application domains and you want to see the existing relationships between them. You develop event-driven applications driven by industry standard specifications for AsyncAPI specifications. You can discover and share events in your underlying system, govern the system by easily determining the impact of any changes that's happening in your system, audit the changes to events, schemas, and applications, and finally capture and discover events flowing in your runtime system, in your runtime environment. So in a nutshell, the event portal is a one-stop shop that lets people design, create, discover, catalog, share, visualize, secure, and manage events and event-driven applications. So that is kind of an overview on the PubSub Event Portal. So let's go ahead and have a hands-on demo on the event portal and cover the use case that we have. So as you can see here, this is the Solace PubSub event portal, and I have pre-populated the event portal portion with different application domains for our fictional company, the Acme Retail Store. We're going to mainly be focusing on the store operation application domain, but keep in mind that there's different application domains that are involved. You have your HR application domain, supply chains, the facility itself. But right now, as a lead architect and a developer, we're only focusing on the store operations component or piece in the Acme Retail. So let's go ahead and delve more into it. So we can see that the different applications we were talking about, the mobile applications, the daily stores summary, the fulfillment applications, they are all defined under the store operations application domain. So this is the applications that we have. Overall, all the applications, the events that are involved between publishing and subscribing different microservices are cataloged under the events tab. So you can see a retail order or a store events that are being published or subscribed. I can delve more into every application, for example, the customer-facing mobile application, and I can see that there are different versions for this. So as a developer, I can know what are the versions that are released, what are the versions that are involved in the customer-facing mobile applications, get more description about the application and the different events, whether it subscribes to events or publishes to events. So we know that this mobile application subscribes to two kind of events. We have a customer event and a retail event, and it publishes a retail order event. On a predefined topic. So you can dig more and delve into what are the different components in your EDA that are involved with this application. So think of it as kind of like an exploratory process where you kind of figure out what are the different components involved in your application. Another aspect of the event portal, as I mentioned earlier in the slides, is you get to visualize your event-driven architecture. So that is found in the runtime manager. So as you can see here in the runtime manager, we have a modeled event mesh for our Acme retail store in different environments. So let's go ahead and jump, for example, in the development environment that we have here. So you get to see all the different applications that are involved in your system and the different events that are also involved between different microservices. So you can see here the customer-facing mobile application or the daily store events. There is a retail order event that is connecting the different applications that are involved in here. So this is an overview, high-level overview on um, what Event Portal is all about, and we're going to delve more into what are the things that we can extract from the Event Portal to help us with the different other pieces of our event-driven architecture. So we talked about Event Portal, and that kind of covers the design aspect of your EDA system. Now, regarding specification, this is where we would meet async API. So as we all know, we're in the AsyncAPI conference right now. It's an open standard to specify your event-driven architecture. I'm not going to delve more into what async API is all about, but I'm going to show you how you can extract async API specification from your event portal. So let's go back into event portal, back into designer. And let's go into our Acme retail store operations application domain. And let's focus on one particular application and go through the specification and mocking of the different events that are involved. So I'm going to choose for my demo the daily store sales summary. So I'm going to go ahead and click this application. And I can see there's different versions of the application, as I mentioned earlier. What I want to do is go ahead and download the async API specification for this application that will specify the topics, the schemas, and the application that is involved with this. So I'm going to go here to the more options. I'm going to download an async API. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so I can download the async API specification for this application. So once I click that, I have the option of downloading a JSON file for my async API, or I can download the YAML file as well. So let's go ahead and open this file and see what is it composed of. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it over here. Let's see this. So we've got the components, channels, and the information. So you can see here in the info block, this is a typical async API specification spec file. I can define or explain what this application is all about. So the title of this application is our daily stores sales summary, and there's more description about it. There's different channels, the one channel that is involved. So I can see here there's only one channel that is involved with this application, and more information about it. We have the components, we've got the schemas in there as well. So even if I take this application, this async API specification, let me open my async API studio. So I have my async API studio, go to the studio, and I will go ahead and paste my async API. So now you can see that I have specification of documentation for my application itself. So this is the topic that is the events are being published on, an example for the payload for the schema, and the message. So we have a retail order message, and this retail order message, as you can see, is a state change information about a single product order. So from the time it is being published until its fulfillment. So this is the async API spec component of the event portal, where we were able to get the application of choice that we want with the right version and download the async API file, as you can see here. And we can even model it in, or get the async API spec file and get documentations on it. So now that we have the async API file. So after we've done the design component of our EDA, went into the specification where I can like specify what the application is all about. I have a lot of options in front of me to use with what's available there with the Async API community. So I can go ahead and use, for example, the open source tooling to generate generators to generate applications. But today I want to cover about different components of the EDA system, which is the mocking piece. So now if we wanted to do the mocking and testing, there are so many different tools out there that developers use to mock different payload traffic in the system, test their APIs. And one of these tools, I'm going to go ahead and open up the developer toolbox, and we'll find that Postman is one of the many tools used by developers. So what exactly is Postman? Postman is, in a nutshell, a platform that is used for building and using REST APIs. It's also used for mocking and testing REST APIs. It is very REST API focused, and there is a lot of extensive tooling and support and community around Postman. But the question comes in with, since Postman is very kind of like REST API focus. It's not really EDA focused. There hasn't been like a lot of components about event-driven architectures with Postman. The question comes in is, how can we fill the gap between the synchronous request reply REST API world and the asynchronous event APIs in EDA using Postman? And this is where I'll be giving you a quick demo on the converter we put together that takes in an async API spec file and generate Postman collection, or it can generate a Postman collection directly from Event Portal and publishes messages using REST APIs, using post REST request. But an important piece over here to kind of highlight how we can fill this gap between the REST synchronous request reply world and the event asynchronous EDA world. And this is where I would like to introduce the Solace PubSub Event Broker. So in a nutshell, one of the many features of this advanced message broker, the Solace PubSub Event Broker, one of my favorite features is something what we call is protocol translation and protocol interoperability. What this means ultimately is you can have different microservices that are communicating over different protocols, communicate with each other, and the protocol translation happens natively within the Solace PubSub Event Broker. And one of the features is a REST API. What this means is you can have services or applications or microservices publishing to the Solace broker using REST APIs, and then you can have other applications behind the scenes that are subscribing to the same topic using other of the other supported protocols. So let's see how this will work from like an end-to-end perspective, and using the Solace broker as the central kind of communication between the different protocols involved in here. So remember our Acme retail stores example before, and we said there's so many different, there's many, like a couple of different applications that are involved in this. And I will be using the daily assembly stores microservice to kind of demo this end-to-end interaction. So what we will be doing is we do have the daily summary sales application that I showed you in Event Portal. And we're able to download the async API specification for the daily summary SIRS. We'll be generating Postman collection using this application, and then from Postman we'll be publishing messages on the topic with a dummy payload over to Solace PubSub Event Broker, and we will have applications subscribing to this. So without further ado, let me go ahead and start this. So I have my applications over here. So I'm going to open a, okay, let me make sure I have this. I'm going to create a new directory, call it demo talk. In this, I will be executing the command, the tool that we have as a command line tool that takes in an async API spec file and converts it to Postman. So we have the async API to Postman that takes in a file, and I've just downloaded the file in my downloads folder, and it was the, this is it. All right, so now we've created a Postman collection. I can also show you that we have an event portal to Postman converter over here that takes in an application. So I'm actually going to do, if I can run the helps over here. All right, so it takes in the application that we want. So what is the application that we want over here? It is the daily product stores, and takes in the application version. What is the application version that I want? 0.1.2, 0.1.2. And what this does, it fetches the application from Event Portal and downloads the async API, downloads the Postman collection. So if I see what are the files that have just been generated right now, this one was just generated by the async API to Postman CLI tool. And this other Postman collection, these are both the same collection. And this one was generated using the Event Portal API to query the application and get the information or the objects needed to generate a Postman collection. Keep in mind that this CLI tool requires a token generation, and you can generate the token directly from your token management page in Event Portal. But I'll show you where we can get more information about these tools. But for now that we have these collections, let's go ahead to Postman and import this collection and see what we can do with this. So this is my Postman. I'm going to go ahead and create, import a collection. So let me open this. I have this collection over here. So I have so these are the two files that I have, and I will bring in the collection and put it directly in here. So I will import it and take a look at what had just been imported. So now I can see that there is one event in here that was imported. The topic of the event is found here, as you can see. The topic itself had some variables. So let me go back to my async API specification and see what the topic was involved with. I'll show you a couple things in the topic. So you can see that my daily store sales summary application and deals with one event, and there's dynamic variables in the event. So the retail order verb is a dynamic variable. The store location, customer ID, and order ID, these are dynamic variables in my topic. So what happens, what my converter did is it took the async API spec file, parsed it, and generated a URL with the topic of choice and used leveraging Postman's variables as part of the topic. So I can go ahead and fill in these variables shortly. But one thing I want to show you as well, that by default, there are some variables that are involved for the Solace host and the Solace port. By default, it is local host. So this means it assumes that I have a local host broker running on my machine. And for my event itself, so looking at the body, so this body has been auto-generated as well and put in my Postman collections. So I will go ahead and just put any values for my retail order for my variables in my topic. So store location, let's say it's in New York, customer ID, I have the customer ID here, and the order ID as well is involved here. So what this means, that I'm going to go back to my slide. So what's happening is we just generated the Postman collection for our microservice. And every post that gets published by Postman is going to go into a Solace broker using the topic in the URL, which is it's going to be published on this topic. So I'm going to open up a browser. So I'm going to go here, localhost 8080. So this is my local Solace broker running locally on my machine on a Docker image. So I'm going to go ahead, admin, and log in. All right. So now that we have our Solace broker up and running, I'm going to go to my Try Me tab. And the Try Me tab is nothing but another microservice or an application that is connected to the broker, and it subscribes to whatever topics that I want. So I will go ahead and connect. And the topic that I want to subscribe to is an Acme Retail. I come here. Acme Retail. Let me actually bring this here. That will be a lot easier. And subscribe. So I'm gonna go ahead here and publish the message. You can see now that Postman receives a 200 OK from the Solace broker, and the message has been received by the subscriber on this topic, the Acme Retail store operations. And you can see that my variable, the dynamic variables, are also part of the message that is being sent. And this is the payload that we have. Keep in mind that now that the message has been published into a Solace broker, this means that any other subscribing application, let's say I'm a developer and I am demoing the, I'm mocking my underlying system, trying to see how the traffic is going to look like in my application. As I'm developing the application, I can go ahead and connect any subscribing application. So even if you want to, let's say over here that I want to connect or develop a MQTT microservice that listens, that subscribes to this. In fact, let's actually go ahead and try this. So what I'm going to do is I can create a local microservice using MQTT with Node.js. So let's say MQTT Node.js example and see what we can get with this. All right, so let's see if this shows us an full example. Yeah, okay, so let's go ahead, try this out. So for demo's sake, so I will create here new directory, MQTT node, and index.js. Let's see what we want. My host is localhost. Same port, we get the client ID. On connection, the username, my username is admin. Password is admin. The topic that I want to subscribe to is Acme Retail. Let me make sure I've got the right one. We got Acme Retail, and I'm going to do a wildcard using MQTT. Now here, keep in mind that I'm using open standard MQTT. So I have to use this MQTT's wildcard notations. So on connect, we want to subscribe to the topic. We don't want to publish anything. So we've got, okay, so we've got this. And that should be it for my MQTT microservice. So let's go ahead and save this, npm install MQTT locally. And let me see, what do I have in here? Node index. All right, so we're connected to the Solace broker on local host, and we're subscribing to this topic. And our broker as well is subscribed. So I'm going to go ahead and clear messages over here. So now the moment of truth, we're going to publish a message. We should receive it here to in my try me tab, and there you go. This is my local microservice. It is a very simple MQTT application that is connected to the Solace broker, and it says that it received a message on this topic, and this is the payload of the message. So pretty much what we just did right now is demoed how, with publishing a message to a Solace broker, we're leveraging the protocol translation functionality of the broker. We're able to connect to the broker using a WebSocket protocol and an MQTT protocol. And we published once using Postman, and now the message is propagated in our quote unquote event-driven architecture, in the mesh of event-driven architecture that we have, and we're able to propagate the message that we just started with, from design, specification, to downloading the async API document, generating a Postman collection from this async API document or directly from Event Portal, and then we're able to use Postman to publish messages via REST post into a Solace broker, into the REST port, and we had different microservices connected to this. So that is pretty much the kind of overall demo of what I had today. There are so many different things that we can take this forward. So there are other features within Postman that we could leverage. So there is the mock responses from, there's the mock server at Postman. So we could use to mock responses from other microservices in your EDA. So now you can have a better and bigger picture of your overall EDA system. We could add native integrations to Postman, and you could directly be able to query your applications from your design time event portal directly into Postman by auto-generating collections. And then now you have variable topics as well involved in your, or like variables in your topic, and you could define what these variables that you want. And there's the mock server feature within Postman that I have not delved more into it, but this is just kind of like scratching the surface on where Postman fits in the event-driven architecture playground that we have. So that's it, folks. That's all I had for today. I'm covering my face with the camera. So if you want to continue the conversation, please go ahead and join the Solace community, where you can ask more information about EDA in general or our Postman integration. You could reach out to me on Twitter as well, and I would be more than happy to continue the conversation with anyone about this. So thanks again, and enjoy the rest of the conference.